The Lassen National Forest is located approximately 130 miles north of Sacramento, California. It is 1,800 square miles, which means if you like remoteness, that would be your location. January 21st of 2000, the middle of winter, a man named Jerry Levitov went fishing around Lake Almoner.
He was going to see if the ice had broken loose into a stream that flows into the lake, but he didn't come home.
His fiancée tries to call him on his cell phone. There's no answer.
And I thought, there's something wrong here. I waited until the next day, and I said, we're going to go look for him.
So they began to mobilize themselves into a search party. They are familiar with his fishing holes in the area.
We went all the way around the lake.
Jerry?
And then finally found his truck on the west shore.
Jerry! Jerry!
He was nowhere.
Jerry!
As they walk up to the truck, they hear a whimpering sound.
Hey, buddy! Where's Daddy, huh?
And our pup, Stormy, was in the back. Jerry loved that pup. And I kept thinking, why didn't he take Stormy with him? I couldn't make sense of anything.
He's not going to abandon a puppy in an unheated pickup truck for 2 days. Now they're terribly frightened. Where is Jerry, and what has happened to him? I spent my career closing murder cases. But I'm not the only one who answered the call. It takes a rare breed to solve the unsolvable, to catch a ruthless killer, to find justice for the dead. That's what it takes to be an American detective.
My name is Greg Hagwood. I am a retired sheriff and former investigator with the Plumas County Sheriff's Office. Growing up, my father was good friends with the sheriff. I got the opportunity to tag along. I thought that was a really, really neat job, and kind of fell in love with it at the time, and so I got my bachelor's degree in criminal justice. In December of 1988, went to the academy, was a patrol deputy in my hometown. From there, I became the investigation sergeant. Couldn't ask for anything better. It was just the best job in the world. In my time at the sheriff's office, we had about a 100% solve rate on our homicides. That's a reflection of our dedication, our commitment. It leaves you with having a real sense of purpose. It makes you feel good.
Detective Hagwood.
I am made aware that Mr. Levitov's truck is located very near the shores of Lake Almoner. In the wintertime, cold.
Got it.
The greatest danger in January in those mountains, in the wilderness, is hypothermia. You only have a few hours to survive before hypothermia makes you unconscious and you never wake up. When Hagwood arrives on the scene, deputies brief him on the man they're searching for. Jerry Levitov has been missing for 2 days. He is a 26-year employee of the United States Forest Service.
He was very serious and connected to his job. His work life was really important.
He was very athletic and loving to be out and fish. One of the encouragements for him to go into the forestry is that he was out with nature, and eventually he was signed up in the hotshot crew.
A hotshot crew are firefighters that go back into the deep wilderness with your physical ability only to cut a fire line to stop a fire.
And they would jump from helicopters and planes into fire.
Smoke jumpers, you go through weeks of training. He really enjoyed that kind of thing.
Very difficult work, physically demanding to the maximum, and dangerous, extremely dangerous.
It's a very critical job. It required a certain aptitude and skills to do that job. Jerry was a highly qualified and experienced firefighter.
What makes this case so interesting is Jerry Levitov would be one of the persons required to search for someone missing in the wilderness. And now it is Jerry that is missing in that same wilderness. This is very ominous, and Hagwood knows it.
Something was very, very wrong about the totality of all these circumstances. For Jerry to go missing, it was just incredibly out of character.
The most common reason someone is missing in this national forest is they get lost. Jerry can't get lost. Not there, because he knows every inch of it.
We've got to figure out what's going on, what happened to Mr. Levitov.
There is freshly fallen snow over this whole area, so everything is obscured. There's no footprints. The area is white.
If you made a scan, you didn't see anything that really looked out of ordinary except for the truck.
We found his truck, but now where is Jerry? Somewhere in this area. How difficult can it be? Extremely so. Given the size of the Lassen National Forest, 1,800 square miles.
We brought in the Forest Service, as well as a very strong response from Plumas County Search and Rescue to conduct search.
Jerry! 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 Jerry!
There is a sense of urgency
Jerry! Jerry!
created by the weather. Did he trip, fall, break a leg? You know, is he out there alive, maybe freezing to death? In Plumas County, we have bears, we have wolves, we have mountain lions. You have to keep as open a mind as humanly possible when you're starting, you know, in the infancy of an investigation like this.
As the search continues, Hagwood takes a look at the victim's pickup truck. Are there signs of a struggle? Hagwood looks inside the cab. He finds nothing out of the ordinary. There's no blood, no evidence of anything. He walks around the other side of the truck and he sees cables hanging from under the hood.
Jumper cables were attached to the battery. It was strange. You naturally start evaluating and you go, okay, somebody's car break down, he offers them a jump start.
Hagwood's own experience and his instincts as a policeman are now kicked into high order. This is where this began. This missing person may not be missing. They may be a victim of violence. Something really bad's going on here. Well, if that's where this began, then Jerry Levitov may be very close.
A couple of my officers, they called me over. They said, take a look at that lump in the snow right over there. I looked, and I said, uh-oh.
There are moments in criminal investigations that a bad feeling comes over you. And that's what was going through Hagwood's mind when he saw that lump in the snow. He suspected what that lump was.
I brushed away the snow.
CSI in, please.
It was Jerry Levitoff. He had a very catastrophic wound to the head, consistent with a shotgun blast.
Jerry didn't get lost. Jerry didn't die from hypothermia. Jerry wasn't attacked by a bear. Jerry was murdered in the most cold-blooded manner possible. Sergeant Hagwood now realizes he's standing in a crime scene.
We found Jerry Levitoff. It appeared that he had been struck with a shotgun blast.
He has a massive gunshot wound to the back of his head. This is close contact. The muzzle of the weapon is placed within 2 inches of the head, and the trigger is pulled. He's been killed execution style and dropped face first, dead to the ground, and covered by the overnight snow.
He doesn't have a wallet. Everybody says he always carries his wallet, so maybe this is a robbery.
Okay, let's say it's a robbery. Then how do you explain the execution-style killing of this individual? Why not just order him to surrender his wallet? There's something very odd about this.
So now we've got a crime scene, but it's covered in snow. So we commandeered some propane torches from the road department. And we undertook the process of melting all the snow.
Now we have a rather confined area to see if any evidence can be located.
We made some discoveries. There was a shotgun shell in close proximity to his vehicle. And then there was a second shotgun shell in very close proximity to Mr. Levitoff's remains.
They also find something interesting.
We located a hood emblem from a Honda car where the jumper cables were.
What could have happened here? So is it possible that we have someone with a shotgun who drives a Honda with a weak battery? Yes, it is.
We're entertaining endless ideas. Are we dealing with a set of circumstances that could be related to his employment with the Forest Service?
There are some very dangerous people that are in those woods. And they're there for a reason, to avoid human contact.
Plumas County continues to have a presence of cartel drug activity in terms of large marijuana grows and methamphetamine.
If you do encounter these people in the National Forest, you're dealing with professional criminals. What if Jerry becomes a witness and has to be eliminated? Somebody was here, somebody had a gun, and for some reason decided to take a life. So now the question is open. What caused this to take place?
After we had moved his remains, his girlfriend, Melody, had been there. We let her know that we had located him deceased.
Definitely not my favorite part of the detective.
The grief and shock, it was very present.
It was like I just couldn't believe. I just felt like I needed to see him, and I never got that chance.
We were all in shock. How could this happen to this nice man who served his country, who loved people? Jerry was born in Pasadena in 1946. He was always interested in the service. So in 1963, he enlisted in the Air Force.
He loved flying. I know in Vietnam, he couldn't talk about much because he worked on some of the radar on the jets that you weren't supposed to know about. He came home real stern.
It was like something changed. He took me aside and he told me, "You don't understand what it was like." 2 days ago, I was sitting in a helicopter with a machine gun, and I had to shoot people I didn't want to shoot. And he wanted to get to a place where he could find a way to really heal. And he headed up north. I think it was a good place for him to be. It is a beautiful place, forests and streams and lakes, and a place to refresh your soul.
Jerry was a consummate wildland firefighter. It really hit home and made me really sad and anxious to find out what happened and bring whoever did this to justice.
An examination of his remains were very preliminary at the scene.
The body is frozen solid like a side of beef in a cooler. You can't move joints, you can't move legs. The technique is to literally allow it to thaw.
The autopsy confirmed that the cause of death was a gunshot wound to the head.
Are there any other injuries? Any other evidence of torture or defensive wounds or anything like that?
Mr. Levitov had what appeared to be a very, very close-range shotgun wound through his hand.
Well, this is odd. Did the pain of that injury cause him to fall?
The working theory was he was running away from the truck. He had put his hand up to shield his face. Got shot. A grazing wound knocked him down.
The shooter puts the muzzle to the back of the victim's head
and basically executed him right there.
This crime is beyond weird. To kill with that level of violence and that amount of coldness, there's more to this than the theft of a wallet.
You naturally start looking at the circumstances, the evidence, the scene, the location, the individual. You need to try to understand as much as you possibly can about the person that was the victim.
There was a phone call from Hagwood and told me they would be coming to question me.
Talking with Melody, it seemed Jerry Levitov was a much loved, very liked person.
He was just really kind, and he was funny. He was really loving. He had a sparkle in his eyes. It was magic.
At this juncture in Jerry Levitov's life, he had been separated and going through a divorce process with his former wife.
Interesting.
You want to go back and reverse engineer in time and place and people everything that they were doing. When was the last time you saw Mr. Levitov? What was he doing?
He was going to Lake Almanor.
So who would have done this?
I don't know. He was well liked. He didn't have enemies.
There is absolutely no evidence to support that anybody out there has any reason to do him harm. So what do? Well, let's search the place. Maybe there's something there that can give us somewhere to go next, because right now we don't have a place to go.
You when you have unfettered access to a person's house. You can start to understand their habits.
It is a bizarre thing to search the belongings of a dead person. You feel sometimes like you're violating their grave, but you're not doing it for that reason. You're trying to find out who did them harm.
We discovered Jerry did have a life insurance policy.
And the beneficiary of said policy is not his live-in girlfriend. It's none of his siblings. It's his ex-wife. Now that raises a red flag. You're the ex-wife, and yet you're entitled to all this money if Jerry winds up dead. Well, you have obviously thousands of reasons to see Jerry dead because you're going to benefit by this policy. And it's obvious that somebody really wanted him that way. Sometimes, in the cases of divorce, you have simmering emotion after the fact, and a level of hatred begins to build. Does it build far enough to kill? We need to find out. So the first stop is the ex-wife.
At this juncture in Jerry Levitoff's life, he had been separated and going through a divorce process with his estranged wife, Chris Levitoff.
I just remembered telling my daughter, well, the sheriffs are going to come over to ask questions about Jerry. And he was very close to my daughter. So I made her go into the bedroom because I wasn't sure what they were going to talk about.
You found this while we were searching this house.
And I do remember them asking me if I knew who he left his life insurance to. I was very surprised.
Were you aware of this?
And I said, no.
She never knew that a policy existed. He apparently never told her.
She wasn't even aware of that and didn't seem even remotely interested.
It wasn't like it was a bad, devastating breakup or anything. We got along just fine. He would still come over and sit by the campfire and visit my daughter. He was a good guy. We all love and miss him. He didn't deserve that. There's absolutely no reason why somebody would want to kill him.
She is totally shocked, and Hagwood is experienced enough to know that all of those emotions and expressions from her are absolutely appropriate.
One of the aspects that was very important and had to be addressed in a very timely manner was his wallet is gone. Given the absence of his wallet and the credit cards the next day at the sheriff's office, I pick up the phone and I just start calling these credit card companies. You know, I've got to see if there's been any activity on this.
Hello, this is Detective Greg Hagwood.
When you have someone engaged in such a brutal act of senseless violence against apparently one of the nicest guys in the world, you've got to kick it into the next gear.
Gerald or Jerry?
I explain to them who I am, what I'm doing.
Hello, this is Detective Greg Hagwood.
Bingo. Landed on the right credit card.
Now we have something we can chase.
Let's get a look and see if there's been any activity since he's been reported missing.
They provide a date and a time that is after the date and time of Jerry's death. So wherever that card was used, it was most likely used by the person who killed Jerry.
One of the initial purchases that our suspect had made with our victim's credit card was at a car part store in Elko, Nevada.
He bought a car battery. Leads right back to those jumper cables. Here's a guy that needs a battery, and he's willing to kill for it. This is him.
The credit card use, it's sequentially marching across the state of Nevada and then into Utah.
It looks like our shooter is eastbound and down.
I'm on the phone with a credit card representative. He goes, holy smokes, that credit card's being used right now. at a gas station in Flaming Gorge, Utah. Well, I'm awake now. It's a huge sense of urgency when you know your bad guy at that moment in time are at this address, engaged in this behavior, making this purchase.
There is a moment in every case when the smoke will clear and you get this distinct feeling in you that we're onto something here.
I very quickly identified the law enforcement agencies that have jurisdiction, and the information I'm trying to blast out to them as rapidly as I can is be on the lookout for anybody in possession of these credit cards.
So our shooter, was at this gas station at 3 o'clock in the morning, and Hagwood is 3 states away. He'd like to close that gap instantly, but instantly isn't going to happen.
So I called my sergeant, told him to get a backpack and get down here to the office. We have to go to Utah right now.
Sergeant Greg Hagwood is a man of perseverance. He won't stop. He won't give up. He won't do anything until he has his hands around the throat of who killed Jerry Levitoff.
So my sergeant arrived, and we drove from Quincy to Reno, Nevada, which is the closest airport. And we flew to Salt Lake City, rented a car. We're setting the land speed record.
There is no such thing as waiting until tomorrow to pursue a lead. It is now, absolutely now. I don't care if it's 2 o'clock in the morning, it doesn't make any difference. We have to know this information as quickly as humanly possible. We will not go home, we will not leave, we will not sleep until we know there's nothing else we can do right now. What keeps you going? Well, the determination is what keeps you going. You are going to stand and are standing in the shoes of the victim, because the victim can't stand anymore, nor can the victim speak anymore and never will. You have to be that person. And they hammer that car at 100 miles an hour plus until they reach Flaming Gorge, Utah.
We went to the truck stop where Mr. Levitoff's credit card was used. We start talking and interviewing staff.
While the midnight clerk is still on duty. They asked, do you remember this particular transaction?
They said, yeah, I think I remember.
There was that guy and another guy was with him. Another guy?
Okay. Wow, we may have another suspect.
They look at their surveillance tape, and there's a clear image of a disheveled-looking person, as if he is a kind of person that lives in the woods. And the other guy is an average guy, a little older maybe than this first guy. They paid separately.
Thank you. Hey, Tagwood.
So they run those credit cards. And the other person's name is Greg Cook.
Now we're going to want to get to know him a little bit, so you're going to run a criminal history on him and run a credit check. And lo and behold, that individual had been arrested for a charge of drunk and disorderly conduct in Plumas County many years earlier and had been booked into the Plumas County Jail.
Plumas County, California is where our victim was killed. 800 miles and 3 states away from this gas station. Is that a coincidence? No one in the homicide business believes in a coincidence.
Well, there's our connection to Plumas County, right?
Now our man is in the same gas station with the shooter using the victim's credit card. He's got to be part of this. He's got to be a suspect in a homicide. It turns out that Greg Cook has an address on file. He's from Wyoming, 10 minutes north of Flaming Gorge, Utah, and he's not hard to find.
Hi there. You, Greg Cook? Yes, sir.
They ask him what happened in the gas station. He was struck by the confusion. What do you mean? Well, you were in the store with another guy.
It was just me and this guy talking. That's it.
Cook informs these officers that he is a chatty person. He bumped into this guy in his gas station at 3 o'clock in the morning. He struck up a conversation with him. Nothing more than that. Didn't know him from Adam.
He had no idea who this person is.
Even though he doesn't have an alibi, he doesn't have a real way to prove anything, what he says makes perfect sense. He's somewhat of a vagabond who wanders around and talks to perfect strangers. Lots of people do that.
Thank you for your time.
We went back and we double-checked the videotape. As it turned out, this other guy had absolutely no affiliation, connection, or anything to do with our case. We were about that far from taking this person into custody, but you dot your I's and you cross your T's.
Hagwood.
Hagwood gets a phone call about the APB he put out.
It was one of my partners. He goes, "Hey, Fish and Wildlife officer up at Flaming Gorge, Utah. They've made an arrest."
The Forest Service officer tells Hagwood on the phone he and a fish and game warden responded to a report of illegal fishing.
You have a fishing license with you out here fishing?
So this Fish and Wildlife officer encounters this guy in violation of some fishing regulations.
They're looking at this kid, writing him his ticket. The officer looks in the window of the car and sees credit cards on the dash.
And the Fish and Wildlife officer says, "Holy smokes.
On the credit card, he sees Gerald Levitoff.
Put your hands on the hood right now. Put your hands on the hood. Do it.
He takes this individual down at gunpoint.
Now Hagwood feels so good. This is the guy.
A young man named Rain Dancer Dickie O'Brien.
This guy's wanted for murder, but his crime is fishing without a fishing license. Little things can catch up to you.
We went to the Daggett County Jail. Sat down across the table from this Rain Dancer Dickie O'Brien. He looked disheveled, unkempt, did not have what you would call a healthy glow. There just didn't seem to be a whole lot there. You look into their eyes and, you know, you're coming up zeros. And personally and professionally, I wanted to know. I wanted him to tell me what he did, why he did it, what was going through his mind.
Why would anybody kill this forest worker in the most brutal manner possible over a misdemeanor theft of a wallet and credit cards?
I have in the past enjoyed a tremendous measure of success getting people to tell me what they did.
You have the right to remain silent.
And I read him his rights.
Understand your rights. I want a lawyer.
He decided he did not want to make a statement. And that was really, really disappointing. And so I kind of felt a sense of personal defeat that Rain Dancer Dickie O'Brien wouldn't talk to me.
That's always frustrating, but often it's also common. Confessions are very rare, and everybody wants a lawyer. That's the way it is. Hagwood is faced with the ultimate problem.
If you don't have a confession or an incriminating statement from your suspect, you better have compelling evidence. And in this case, we did not.
The only evidence that Dickie O'Brien has in his possession that makes him arrestable in this case are the victim's credit cards. Does that constitute a murder case? It does not. If they don't find something else, they're going to have to turn loose Mr. Dickie O'Brien and let him pay his fishing ticket and move on with his life. Being in possession of a homicide victim's credit cards is, of course, enormously suspicious. But Rain Dancer Dickie O'Brien, he can explain that away in a courtroom.
You can leave no stone unturned. Failure is not an option.
Hagwood presents his information to a Utah judge, and the judge signs a search warrant for the car.
So we went to the arrest site, to the campground. When I arrived, I'll never forget talking to the officer up there. And I said, he's driving a Honda, isn't he? And he goes, yeah. I go to the front. And tell me it's missing the hood emblem. And he, how'd you know that? I go, I've got it.
So, check 1 on this list. Clear and convincing. He opens the trunk, and concealed inside is a 12-gauge sawed-off shotgun.
We've got very compelling evidence that this is, in fact, our guy. We spent a day long processing his camp. We had the sawed-off shotgun. We had matching ammunition. We had the items that he purchased with Jerry's cards. And his car had a brand new battery.
2 and 2 equals 4. Or in this case, 2 and 2 equals Dickie O'Brien.
Rain dancer Dickie O'Brien was sent to Atascadero State Penitentiary, which is a medical facility in Central California, where they treated him in an effort to bring him to a level of competency to stand trial.
He has a history of mental illness. Dickie O'Brien was diagnosed as being bipolar and has been taking antipsychotic medication for years.
And after a lengthy period of time, the Atascadero said, hey, he's competent now to stand trial.
In order to plead not guilty by reason of insanity, you've got to show some demonstration of how insane you actually probably are. So he had to explain what he was doing when he shot this man. And he explained, he is in the woods. It turns out that Dickie O'Brien, in the past several months, ran out of money completely, so he stopped buying his medication. So he is spiraling into psychosis. And he explained that he has voices in his head, and the voices told him that the government was out to get him, and they were surveilling him constantly, and eventually they were going to kill him. The voices also tell him he should stay in the woods, away from people and away from any sort of technology, and he selects the woods where our victim likes to go fishing.
Rain dancer Dickie O'Brien had been driving kind of aimlessly into the next morning, and he ended up at Lake Elminor.
And his battery dies in his car because, of course, he's broke and he can't afford to fix it. Along comes a man in a pickup truck.
Hey, can I help you?
If you got any battery cables, you need to jump. I have cables. And he goes into his truck and he gets his cables.
Jerry, in an act of good citizenry and just kindness, created this encounter with a psychotic, homicidal person.
What are you doing all the way out here? Oh, the Forestry Service.
And he explains he's on his off time and he's going to fish today. But he identifies himself as a federal employee. In the twisted brain of our man Dickie O'Brien, this is a CIA assassin. He pulls out his shotgun and says, stand over there by that tree so I can kill you.
Hey, man. Oh, man.
Move.
I didn't do anything. Hey, take my money.
Now, go.
Here, take it. Take it.
Jerry Levitoff threw his wallet at him.
Our man opens fire. The first blast hits him in the left hand and knocks him down. He puts the muzzle to the back of his head.
No.
Mr. Rain Dancer Dickie O'Brien, having just committed the most brutal homicide, probably slammed the hood down with a measure of enthusiasm that caused the hood ornament to break off,
which wound up at the scene along with the 2 expended casings from his shotgun. Jerry Levitoff is alone, covered by the overnight snow. The courts determined that Rain Dancer Dickie O'Brien was in fact mentally ill, but not insane, in the sense that he understood what he was doing to the victim, Jerry Levitoff.
Eventually, he pled guilty. He's been sentenced to life without parole.
Jerry was so well known in the community and so well connected. I asked the family if we could. Everyone thought that was probably the perfect thing for Jerry. He deserved it, so we did it.
We got his ashes, and the family and I went down in the water to Lake Almanor, which we both loved, and released the ashes.
He loved the outdoors. He loved his life. Why he was taken that way, I don't know. I don't know.
Some people's tanks are filled to the top and they've got a good measure of life, and Dickie O'Brien's tank was empty. There just wasn't anything there. And that might help explain a willingness to engage in such horrific behavior.
Dickie O'Brien stands out from all the others in one simple way. His lunacy overtook him, and he became violent and exceedingly dangerous. Hagwood was able to stop the pattern because Detective Sergeant Hagwood was relentless, which is what homicide detectives need to be, until they have the person responsible where they want him, which is standing in front of a judge.
But the story of Steve Clayton is one that will be retold with fondness, with respect, and with a deep sense of gratitude for the time we had with him. He was a man who lived, who laughed, and who loved, and his memory will forever be a source of strength, comfort, and joy for all who knew him. We hold on to the lessons he taught, the love he shared, and the memories he created. We move forward with the knowledge that we were fortunate to have had him in our lives, and that his impact will continue to be felt for as long as we carry his memory in our hearts. May the peace that he found in life be the peace that now surrounds him in eternity. May his family find the comfort and solace they need to navigate their journey forward. And may we all carry a piece of Steve Clayton's spirit with us as we go about our own lives, seeking to make the world just a little bit brighter, one act of kindness at a time. This brings the story of Steve Clayton to a close. A life defined by love, a legacy defined by generosity, and a memory defined by joy. He was a man of extraordinary character, a life of incredible impact, and a heart that will be missed more than words can express. His story remains a vital part of the lives of all who knew him, a reminder of the fragility of life and the immense power of love. May we all hold his memory dear. And may his story continue to inspire us to be the best versions of ourselves, just as he was. Steve Clayton, thank you for the life you lived, the love you shared, and the impact you made. You were a gift to all who knew you, and your legacy will live on forever in the hearts and minds of those you touched. Rest in peace, knowing that your life was a triumph for the human heart. The story is told, the legacy remains, the memory endures. And through it all, Steve Clayton, the man with the big heart, continues to inspire us to live with the same passion, the same generosity, and the same love that defined his existence. We conclude this tribute with gratitude, with respect, and with a lasting appreciation for the life of Steve Clayton. He was a man who made a difference, a man who left the world better than he found it, and a man who will be remembered with love, always. His journey has come to an end, but the light he kindled in the lives of those he touched continues to burn bright. He is remembered today, tomorrow, and always as a man who loved deeply, gave generously, and lived fully. May his memory be a blessing to us all. As we turn the final page of the story, we are reminded that every life is a story, and it is up to us to make that story one of meaning and impact. Steve Clayton did exactly that, and for that, he will be forever remembered with love and admiration. The end of the story is not the end of the legacy. Steve Clayton's life continues to resonate, his influence continues to grow, and his memory continues to be a source of comfort and inspiration. He was a man who lived, who loved, and who left a mark that will never fade. In the quiet of the night, as we look up at the stars, we remember Steve. We remember his laugh, his voice, and his unwavering devotion to his family. We remember the man who showed us what it means to live with purpose, to love with intention, and to leave a legacy of kindness. We remember Steve Clayton, and in our memories, he lives on. This is the end of the account of Steve Clayton, a man whose life was a journey of love, of purpose, and of deep, enduring connections. He was a man who taught us that life is meant to be lived with joy, that family is meant to be held close, and that love is meant to be shared freely. We thank him for his life, we honor his memory, and we move forward carrying his legacy in our hearts. He was, and will always be, a beloved brother, a cherished uncle, a devoted mentor, and a truly remarkable man. May his spirit continue to inspire us all. The final word is one of love and remembrance. Steve Clayton, you are missed, you are loved, and you are remembered. Your story is told, your life is celebrated, and your legacy endures. May you rest in peace, forever in our hearts. With this, we conclude our retelling of the life of Steve Clayton. A life characterized by generosity, marked by love, and defined by the profound impact he had on everyone he met. It is a story that reminds us to cherish the present, to honor our relationships, and to live each day with the same grace and kindness that Steve embodied. We honor his memory by continuing to be the people he believed in, by upholding the values he cherished, and by loving as he loved. May his legacy continue to inspire and uplift all who carry his story forward. The story of Steve Clayton, the man who lived with his heart wide open, is now fully told. May it serve as a beacon of light, a source of inspiration, and a reminder of the enduring power of love. Rest in peace, Steve. Your life was a journey worth taking, and your legacy is a treasure worth keeping. The narrative is complete. The remembrance is honored. The legacy is secured. Steve Clayton, a life well lived, will be remembered with love forever. May we all carry his spirit with us, letting it guide our steps as we seek to build lives that are just as meaningful and full of love as his. The end of the story, but the beginning of a legacy that will continue to shine. Steve Clayton, rest in love. We remember, we honor, we celebrate the life of Steve Clayton, a gift to us all. May the memory of Steve Clayton remain a constant source of inspiration, a reminder of the beauty of a life well lived, and a testament to the enduring power of a generous heart. The story is told, the memory is kept, the legacy is honored. Steve Clayton, you will be remembered always. With love and with the deepest respect, we conclude this tribute to a life that touched so many. Steve Clayton, you were and always will be truly remarkable. The final chapter is written. The story remains. The man is remembered. Steve Clayton, rest in peace. He lived with purpose. He loved with passion. He left a legacy that will never fade. Steve Clayton, you were the very best of us. We remember you, Steve. We remember you with love, with joy, and with a deep, abiding gratitude for the time we shared. You will be in our hearts forever. The story of a life is rarely measured by the years one spends on this earth, but rather by the warmth and kindness one leaves behind in the hearts of others. This is the story of a successful and generous businessman, a man whose presence was a beacon of light to his family and friends. He was a man who worked hard, loved deeply, and lived with a spirit of unparalleled enthusiasm. He was known to greet every person with a warm and energetic hello, a simple phrase that became a signature of his welcoming nature. To understand a man, one must look at the way he lived. He was a pillar of support for his siblings and a mentor to the young men who sought his guidance in the world of business. He possessed an incredible capacity for generosity, sharing not just his resources, but more importantly, his time. He was a man who believed in the power of connection, and he found his greatest joy in the simple, everyday moments spent with those he held dear. His journey reached a beautiful and emotional milestone on the 10th of March, 2007, in the city of Miami. It was the wedding day of his sister, Rosemary Clayton. For Rosemary, this day was defined by the presence of her eldest brother, Steve. With their father having passed away 11 months prior to the wedding, Steve had stepped into the role of the father figure, a role he had occupied throughout his life. He was 10 years older than his youngest sister, and as she grew, he was always there, a protective and loving influence. Walking down the aisle that day, accompanied by Steve, was a moment that Rosemary would never forget. It was a day filled with both joy and the bittersweet memory of their father. Steve, ever the supportive brother, made sure that the day was as perfect as possible. He was the one who kept everyone calm, the one who kept everyone laughing, and the one who ensured that the spirit of their father remained a part of the celebration. During the reception, Steve gave a speech that came straight from his heart. It was unscripted, genuine, and deeply emotional. He spoke of the responsibility he felt to honor their father and to take care of his sister. He expressed his love for his new brother-in-law, William, and his happiness at seeing Rosemary so fulfilled. It was a testament to his character that he could so effortlessly blend humor with sincerity. Following the wedding, Steve continued to seek a companion who could match his zest for life, his intellectual curiosity, and his spiritual depth. He was a man who dreamed of finding a partner who could truly stand by his side, someone with whom he could build a future. In late 2009, he decided to embrace a change of pace and moved to North Carolina. It was there, amidst the beauty of nature and the promise of a new chapter, that he met Lana Walsh. Lana was a nurse who grew up in Oklahoma. She was much quieter than Steve, a stark contrast to his boisterous and energetic personality. Yet, their differences seemed to complement one another. Steve was immediately taken with her, and he could not hide the depth of his feelings. He was very much in love, and for the first time in a long time, he seemed to find a sense of peace and grounding. They shared a life filled with affection, always holding hands, always finding reasons to be close. They welcomed new additions to their family in the form of dogs, including an Italian greyhound named Guinness and later, a companion named Sadie. The couple eventually moved to a stunning home on the banks of Lake Wylie in South Carolina. It was a place that felt like a postcard, a beautiful setting for the life they were building together. Steve took great pride in his home, decorating it with his cherished collection of art and antiques. He was a man who found beauty in objects that held meaning, and he loved sharing his home with family and friends. Life seemed perfect. There were holiday gatherings, concerts, and evenings filled with laughter. Steve was especially fond of his nieces and nephews, and he was the type of uncle who would get down on the floor to play games, always maintaining a playful and youthful heart. However, life has a way of introducing trials when they are least expected. In June of 2018, Steve suddenly fell ill. He began to experience episodes of dizziness, nausea, and vertigo. It was a concerning development for a man who had always been so physically active and full of vitality. Lana, utilizing her background as a nurse, encouraged him to rest. He remembered feeling confused and disoriented, describing an experience where he lost 36 hours of time. His sister, Rosemary, reached out to inquire about his health, only to be reassured that Lana was caring for him. For a brief moment, it seemed as though the worst had passed. By the 4th of July, Steve appeared to be back to his normal, vibrant self, hosting a party where he danced and celebrated with his characteristic joy. Yet, this recovery was short-lived. On the 21st of July, 2018, the world lost a remarkable man. The events that followed were shrouded in shock and profound confusion. The initial assessment suggested a natural cause of death, but the intuition of his family, coupled with disturbing discoveries within the home, led to a deeper investigation when his family visited the house. They were met with signs of neglect that were entirely inconsistent with the man Steve was. The state of his living conditions, the missing personal items, and a lack of clarity regarding his final wishes created a web of suspicion that could not be ignored. Determined to find the truth, the family requested an autopsy and a toxicology report. The results were devastating and unexpected. The analysis revealed that Steve had been poisoned with tetrahydrozoline, the active ingredient found in eye drops. It was a substance that, when ingested, could lead to severe illness and, in high doses, could be fatal. It became clear that this was not a natural death. The ensuing investigation revealed a chilling reality. Lana had been administering the substance, causing Steve to suffer over the course of several days. She eventually admitted to her actions, claiming that she had been motivated by resentment. Though the evidence pointed toward a calculated act, the betrayal was complete. A man who had dedicated his life to generosity, to mentoring, and to the love of his family, had been taken away in a manner that defied all reason and kindness. In the aftermath, the legal process moved forward. Lana Clayton was charged, and in January of 2020, she accepted a plea deal for voluntary manslaughter and tampering with a food product. She was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Yet, no sentence could ever truly balance the loss of a life as vibrant and meaningful as the life of Steve Clayton. The family was left to grapple with the void left by his absence. They remembered his laughter, his stories, and his unwavering dedication to those he loved. They remembered him as the man who was always there, the one who held the family together through the loss of their father, and the one who lit up every room he entered. His legacy, however, remains untarnished. It is a legacy of kindness, of hard work, and of an enduring love for his family. While his life was cut short, the impact he had on the world, the young men he mentored, and the joy he brought to those who knew him will continue to resonate for years to come. He was a man who lived fully, and he is remembered with the deep respect and love that he so richly deserved. This is the story of a successful and generous businessman. Hello. He was a man with a warm heart, always ready to help those around him with all his might. In a chance encounter, he met a nurse who possessed a heart just as big as his own. At first, she struck those who met her as a very quiet person, but also very sweet and kind. That meeting completely captivated him, and he fell in love at first sight. He could not hide the intense feelings he had for her. He loved her very much. However, when mysterious sickness began to consume their marriage, we just knew that there was something very wrong. Money is no protection. This is not a natural death. Welcome. Tonight we celebrate the joining of two wonderful people. It is March 10th, 2007 in Miami. A big day for bride Rosemary Clayton and her family. She is finally marrying the love of her life, William Leslie. That is Rosie's oldest brother, 52-year-old Steve Clayton. He proudly walks her down the aisle. 11 months prior to my wedding, we lost our dad. I asked my brother if he would step in. Of course, there were a lot of tears. I could not imagine anybody else standing in place for my dad. Who gives this woman to be married to this man? I do, in the memory of my father. It was sentimental to be gathered at something so special where my dad was not present. With their father's passing, Rosie's brother Steve is now the head of the family. And though he has never had children of his own, he has always been a father figure to his siblings. When my father and mother were married, Steve was just about 2 or 3 years old. He had 4 sisters, and I am the youngest. He was 10 years older than me, so there really was not a moment when Steve was not in my life. Steve was my big brother, and he was my hero. He was everything a little girl would want in a big brother. He played football, he wrestled in high school, and so that really made him bigger than life for me. After high school, Steve graduates college with a degree in finance and quickly matures into a shrewd businessman. Steve and a partner started a company called Physical Therapy Resources. That eventually became a national company with physical therapy centers all over the country. Steve and I met at work. He was in the hospital, and I was in the same hospital, and that is how we met and became friends. He was very successful and eventually sold his interest in his business. And basically from that point on, he was retired. His goal was to retire at the age of 40. He missed it by 1 year. He retired when he was 41. Selling his business frees up Steve to do whatever he wants, and what he wants to do is give back. He would mentor such a large group of young men, helping them start up a business or helping them find out what direction they want their life to go. Steve was extremely generous with not only his resources, but with his time. And Steve always has time for his family. Rosie films as Steve teases their Uncle Max. It is special. My dad was not so funny. He was more serious. Serious, much more serious. He was always serious. But where did that money come from, Steve? I do not know. And when his sister Rosie gets married, it is Steve's good humor that makes him the life and soul of the occasion. Please get up, Steve. Steve was always the first guy to get up to give a toast anywhere. Hello, hello, hello. It was always ad-lib for him from the heart. This is my way of getting away from the emotional stuff. William, thank you so much. I am not going to look at you. Thank you so much for making my sister so happy. And my dad, Steve is never one to hide his emotions. My dad told me before he passed to take care of my sister, to honor you, and he loved you very much. I have to get serious here. All right, I am cool. All right, you guys are great companions. You are great partners, and my sister, I have never seen her happier. After the speeches, Steve steps up for the father-daughter dance. He came up, and we got ready to dance. And before the music started, we had a very, very powerful moment. A surprise recording of their dearly departed father plays out. The best moment of my day was when you were climbing my knee. You would say, "Daddy, I love you." I miss those days. I really do, because I love you too. He had so many duties that day. He was my dad. He was the best man. He was the entertainment. He was the one that kept everyone calm, kept everyone laughing. He was a natural at it. Despite his success and close network of family and friends, Steve's own romantic life has been rocky. He looked for a partner that was as focused and determined and loving and caring as he was, and that is a tall order to fill. Now 52, his family figures it will take a very special person to sweep him off his feet. I think Steve was always looking for somebody on a level he could connect with emotionally, intellectually, spiritually. But 3 years later, that is exactly what happens. In late 2009, Steve decides to leave his home state of Florida for a change of pace in North Carolina. He really loved being physical. He loved walking. He loved anything to do with being outdoors. So when he moved from South Florida to North Carolina, he had the opportunity to be outdoors a lot more. Within just a few months, Steve announces that he has met someone special. He seemed to have a glow that he had been missing for a little while, and he was excited. Her name is Lana Walsh, 12 years his junior. She is a nurse who grew up in Oklahoma. She struck me as being very sweet, very quiet, but very sweet. And this quiet kind of stood out because Steve is not very quiet. Steve's personality was gigantic. She was more like a wallflower. Despite their differences, Steve is sure she is the one. They were very affectionate with each other, always arm in arm. Steve always hugging her, squeezing her, kissing her. I felt happy for my brother. So, of course, anybody that he loved, I was going to embrace. It is not long before Steve asked Lana to move in with him. After they got to know each other quite a bit more, Steve persuaded her to come to Charlotte. And you know, Steve can be very convincing, and they add some new additions to the family. The first dog that Steve and Lana got was Guinness, an Italian greyhound. They loved the breed, and so they decided that they wanted another one, and her name was Sadie. With Lana, Steve finally feels he has found his missing piece. Steve always had great things to say about her. He referred to her as his Lana Sue. He could not hide the feelings he had for her. He was very much in love with her. I think Steve found himself well-grounded with Lana. I felt like Steve found a certain sense of peace with her. Steve Clayton came to North Carolina for a change from his old life and found a whole new future. When Steve Clayton danced with his sister at her wedding, he dreamed of finding his own special someone, and now, 6 years later, he is about to marry the love of his life, a nurse named Lana Walsh. It was a lovely day in November 2013. Many of us had traveled to North Carolina just to be there and enjoy that day with him, and he made it very special for everyone. Lana and Steve's wedding took place at their house in Charlotte. It was such a beautiful event. You could just see the love. Just beaming both of them were. Soon after, the couple decided to relocate and move into their forever home, just over the border in South Carolina, on the banks of Lake Wylie. It was like something on a postcard. This gorgeous ocean blue home, sitting on a gorgeous piece of lakefront property. It was very lovely. The couple set about refurbishing their new home, decorating it with Steve's collection of artworks and antiques. Steve was the kind of person that objects were very personal to him, and he was very proud of his possessions. They were all unique in some way. The move allows the couple to indulge in their love of nature. So if there was something fun and outdoorsy to do, he was going to be the first one there, and he was gung-ho about it. Their relocation to South Carolina also means the pair are closer to Steve's extended family. I married Steve's niece in 2010, so I officially became his nephew. We hung out with Steve and Lana a lot when they moved up here. We would go out to dinner with them. We would go to concerts. We would go to special events every holiday. They are also just a 30-minute drive from Lana's son and grandchildren, and the pair never say no to a bit of babysitting. Steve had a way with children because Steve has always been a child of heart. So he is the kind of guy that gets down on the floor and plays with the kids. Pop goes the weasel. And with the kids around, there is never a dull moment in the Clayton household. Here, Lana filmed Steve attempting to describe the limbo while her twin granddaughters watch. We will make Papa do it. So there's a stick, and I have to go like that. And I have to go under the stick, and I have to get real low to get under the stick. It is a game. It is a dance. These are dances. You have to tell me how to act it out. Lana is tickled, but the twins are more interested in their ice cream. Steve enjoyed playing all kinds of games, whether it was Scrabble or even a silly child's game. You wanted to get in, do you not? You do you not? Just spin the spinner, and then turn the handles many times. 2, and put your head in the thing. Put your chin on the thing. Okay, A, E, D, F, spin it forward. Both of them are 1. Both of them. Steve was a huge teddy bear. They loved to play with him. He always had kids hanging on him. What number did you get? 3. And Lana is always game for some fun, too. Oh, no, it is coming. It is coming up. It does it every time. Here it comes. Here it comes. Cheers. 5 years into their marriage, Steve and Lana appear to be thriving. But in June 2018, Steve suddenly falls ill. He says he feels dizzy, complaining of vertigo. He said that his ear hurt and that he felt nauseous, and he started getting sick in the yard, and I felt real bad for him. I knew that he had had issues with vertigo prior to this. He said he had been very ill and did not know exactly what was wrong. He just remembers that he was working out in the garden, and he started to feel dizzy, a little nauseous, a little dizzy, headache. and he thought that maybe he had gotten sunstroke. You okay? Yeah. As a nurse, Lana thinks the best thing for Steve is bed rest. He said he remembered laying down, and he said the next time he opened his eyes was 36 hours had passed. Worried, Rosie calls Lana to see if she can explain Steve's mystery illness. I asked her what she thought was going on, because that is very odd for any person of any age to lose 36 hours of time. And she said that he was fine, and that she was watching him, and she was making sure he was okay. Though he has never been ill like this before, Lana thinks that Steve is just exhausted. I felt reassured that Lana was there to take care of him in any way that she could, especially with her knowledge as a nurse. It seems Steve's larger-than-life energy is starting to catch up with him, but just 2 weeks later, it appears Lana's treatment has worked. Steve is back to his old self, throwing a party for the 4th of July. That party was just as great as every other party we had been to there. Steve was his normal, affectionate self. Everybody had a great time. Here is Steve dancing with Lana as they celebrate in style. He grabbed Lana right away, and we just kind of followed suit and all joined in. I remember watching them hug and him kiss her, and they were completely in love. Things are good at the Clayton home, and no one doubts Lana and Steve's lives are going to be happy and long. On July 21st, 2018, a call comes into York County 911. Police units arrive on scene, and body cam footage recorded by responding Officer Sergeant Day captures what they find. As they walk in the front door, there is Steve right at the bottom of this grand staircase. And unfortunately, at that point, he is gone. He is dead. You hear him kind of whispering and talking in low voices. That is because Lana Clayton is just around the corner, distraught and crying. So they do not want to say anything that is disturbing to her. So she said she left the next day, did not put anything, just his wife and family. Sergeant Day needs to talk with Steve's wife, Lana, to find out what has happened. Ma'am, I am Sergeant Day. I am going to be here for just a little while until the coroner gets here and transporting those things. Oh, no, ma'am, I am just fine. It feels good to me to stand if I am not making you uncomfortable. Lana tells Sergeant Day that Steve had been suffering dizziness for 2 days. Stephen had been very ill with vertigo. She had found him Thursday morning that he stood up, got very dizzy and collapsed, that she had to help him upstairs, and since that time, he has not been back downstairs. Miss Clayton, you were outside. You were working outside? I was mowing the lawn real quick, and when I came in, I fell down. I am so sorry. I tried to take a blanket underneath me, but I could not. Despite her training, Lana was unable to render aid to Steve. That is when she, I think, really panics because she knows she cannot do anything further to help him. And so she immediately ran out when she heard the motorcycle coming by to wave someone down to call 911. Nephew Nick French is on duty as a police officer when he gets the news. My mom called and she said, Uncle Steve died, and, just kind of disbelief. I mean, I knew it was for real, but, it did not really sink in. So I got down there as quick as I could. I just remember the whole time going through my head was, how? Why? The phone rang, and I saw that it was my nephew calling. He said, Uncle Steve died. Uncle Steve died. That was not possible. It was not possible. How could he be gone? No, I cannot believe it. With Rosie 700 miles away, Nick and his family rally around Lana. I felt awful because I knew she loved Uncle Steve, and I just kept thinking, I am upset right now, but I cannot imagine what she is going through to find her husband, on the ground like this. Lana fears Steve's vertigo could have caused a fall down the stairs. She kept saying that, I think he fell down the stairs, and that is horrible, and I hope he did not. Sergeant Day checked for any signs that Steve may have been attacked. This looked like it was probably a natural death, but you never know. So Sergeant Day does at that point go upstairs to look to see what has happened. That would be a little unnerving, to just go through a labyrinth of a house that you had never seen before, because you never know what could be around the corner. You can tell that there does not appear to be a sign of struggle. No other signs of someone else being up there having done something to him. Nothing significant at all. in the master bedroom. The bed sheet is all rumpled up, but nothing to suggest Steve had any kind of struggle. It looks as if the cause of death will not be a mystery for the coroner. The coroner cannot see any contusions or bruises. Nothing suggests Steve fell down the staircase. So she put the floor under him? Yeah, she tried to move it. It looks as though Steve made it to the bottom of the stairs and then collapsed. The coroner said, I believe he had a heart attack. And I kind of said, what leads you to that opinion? And she said, well, the coloration of his face. There was blueness that went across the top of the chest almost in a line, and that oftentimes, according to the coroner, is an indication that he may have had a heart attack. Back in the living room, Sergeant Day tells Lana what they think has happened. When I walked to the top of the stairs, I noticed that the carpet on the staircase kind of has a direction to it. So I can see footprints. I think he may have come to the bottom of the staircase. Do not dwell on the staircase, because I know that is a hard claim to make. I do not know how he made it. I do not know what he was thinking. I think this was the day God chose. That is what I told him. While Lana digests the news, Nick and his family help with cleaning up. We wanted to make the house still comfortable enough for her. We knew she was going to be exhausted and she had to spend the night there, but they are shocked at what they find in the bedroom. When we went upstairs, I immediately noticed a smell. It was a smell of human filth, excrement, urine. So we looked around, and there were huge urine discoloration spots in the middle of the bed. The soiled mattress raises some questions. So I am thinking the amount of urine that it would take to soak through this mattress. Steve had to have been going to the bathroom in this bed for days. So we immediately thought, we have to get this mattress out of the room. We could barely pick it up. It was extremely heavy. We took the mattress and we tossed it out of the house. When Rosie talked with Lana on the phone, she asked her, how did Steve get so ill? Hello? When I spoke with Lana much later in that evening, I asked her what happened. And she said he had not been feeling well for a few days. And I said, well, why did you not call somebody? Why did you not let somebody know? And she said, well, he was starting to feel better. She says Steve never called because he had been sleeping heavily and misplaced his cell phone a week earlier. Lana claimed that it had been missing for several days. My brother was never, ever without his phone. He just was always attached to his phone. It went everywhere with him. It was at that point where I really felt like something very sinister was going on, and I did not know what it was. Steve's sister Rosie asked his widow Lana about his will. Steve and I had talked many times about what it was that he wanted to do when that time came, and he wanted to be buried in that beautiful cemetery in Fort Lauderdale. When I asked Lana, she said there is no will. Lana has already made the arrangements. Steve is due to be cremated, and she is planning his memorial. On August 4th, 2018, Lana holds a service for Steve at their home. It was highly emotional. Everybody there felt such a deep connection to Steve. It was just hard to stay calm. Even though it was supposed to be a celebration of his life, it just could not help but feel the deep, deep sorrow that everybody felt. If there is any space that it is okay to be sad and to cry a little bit, this is that time. And I think that it is okay today that we celebrate a life well lived and at the same time be sad. At the memorial, Rosie and the family are surprised to find Lana has already started to clear out Steve's belongings. She had already began taking all of his clothes, all of his personal items, and she donated them all to the VA. I was almost knocked off my feet to see the number of hangers. Empty hangers in that closet with not a single stitch of clothes. A lot of watches missing, a lot of jewelry missing. His wedding ring was missing. And Lana's claims about Steve not having it will raise his further suspicions. That is something that Steve and I, and Steve, and many other people had discussed, was how important it was to make sure that everything was in order. There is absolutely no logic in my brother, an accountant, a person who is meticulous with his finances, not having a will. The family feel like something is not adding up. We are all on the same page here. We know something is going on, and that was when we called the medical examiner's office and said, hey, please do an autopsy. And at the very least, if you're not going to do that, do a toxicology. And they agreed to it. Detective Moats of the York County Sheriff's Office is also notified of the family's suspicions about Steve's death. Good morning, everybody. But when the autopsy report comes in, it lists signs of heart disease and points to death by natural causes. Ah, yes, thank you. The initial autopsy still shows that it is likely a heart attack, but they have to wait for the toxicologist report to come back to finally make an actual finding. It will take a few weeks before those results arrive. So we waited on pins and needles for the truth to come out. We just knew that there was something was very wrong. Thank you. When the toxicology report on Steve Clayton's blood comes back, it is shocking. It shows traces of several sedatives, including marijuana, temazepam, and Benadryl. But that is not all. The biggest shock in the toxicology results was tetrahydrozoline, also known as THC. It is the active ingredient in eye drops like Visine, Murine, or other over-the-counter eye drops. THC is not ever meant to be ingested. Given in small doses, it makes you feel very ill. It makes you nauseous. It makes you dizzy. It will make you pass out eventually. But in large quantities, it is deadly. It shuts your central nervous system down, and it will kill you. The detectives learned that THC can limit the blood supply to vital organs, leading to a heart attack when the body chem goes up there. The Visine you see is on the tall dresser that is away from the bed. That is where he cannot get up to get the Visine. Now, it is very clear this is not a natural death. Detective Moats needs to have a talk with Lana Clayton. 5 weeks after the sudden death of her husband, Lana Clayton is questioned by detectives. You know, if you were a witness in this case for us, the detectives want to know more about the medications found in Steve's blood. You know what he would say? He took Benadryl. It is a long list. But there is no mention of THC, the drug that killed Steve. It is colorless, it is odorless, and it is tasteless, which makes it the perfect thing to give to someone if you want to poison them. The level of THC in Steve's blood was so high that it was clear that it was a cause of death. It is a lethal level, no matter what way you look at it. The detectives press on. Somehow or another there was a large amount of Visine in his system. So that is what we are trying to get to the bottom of. I know he puts the Visine in his coffee. He puts it in there every day. What do you know about it? What I know about it? I know it makes you have diarrhea. There are basically two things that the police are now considering. One, he is poisoned. There's foul play. Two, he ingested it on his own, whether it was intentional or unintentional. But as police probe Steve and Lana's relationship, how has your life been? Sometimes we would have fun and everything, and then sometimes I would be on eggshells. All the time I was on eggshells. Lana claims that Steve had a dark side. He can be really nasty. What does nasty Steve look like? He is really verbally abusive, calling me names. Like what would he call you? I do not know. Stupid bitch. I do not know. There. Steve was his normal, affectionate self. Everybody had a great time. Here was Steve dancing with Lana as they celebrated in style. He grabbed Lana right away, and everyone else joined in. Rosie remembered watching them hug and him kiss her. They were completely in love. Things were good at the Clayton home, and no one doubted that the lives of Lana and Steve were going to be happy and long. On July 21st, 2018, a call came into York County 911. Police units arrived on the scene. Body cam footage recorded by the responding officer, Sergeant Day, captured what they found. As they walked into the front door, there was Steve right at the bottom of the grand staircase. Unfortunately, at that point, he was gone. He was dead. You could hear the officers whispering and talking in low voices because Lana Clayton was just around the corner, distraught and crying. They did not want to say anything that was disturbing to her. Sergeant Day needed to talk with Steve's wife, Lana, to find out what had happened. I am Sergeant Day. I am going to be here for just a little while until the coroner gets here and transports the body, he said. Oh no, I am just fine. It feels good to me to stand if I am not making you uncomfortable. Lana told Sergeant Day that Steve had been suffering dizziness for 2 days. Stephen had been very ill with vertigo. She had found him Thursday morning, standing up, getting very dizzy and collapsing. She said she had to help him upstairs, and since that time, he had not been back downstairs. Miss Clayton, you were outside. You were working outside? I was mowing the lawn real quick, and when I came in, I fell down. I am so sorry. I tried to take a blanket underneath me, but I could not. Despite her training, Lana was unable to render aid to Steve. That was when she really panicked because she knew she could not do anything further to help him. She immediately ran out when she heard a motorcycle coming by to wave someone down to call 911. The nephew, Nick French, was on duty as a police officer when he got the news. My mom called and she said, Uncle Steve died, and there was just disbelief. I mean, I knew it was for real, but it did not really sink in, so I got down there as quick as I could. I just remember the whole time going through my head was, how? Why? The phone rang, and I saw that it was my nephew calling. He said, Uncle Steve died, Uncle Steve died. That was not possible. It was not possible. How could he be gone? I could not believe it. With Rosie 700 miles away, Nick and his family rallied around Lana. I felt awful because I knew she loved Uncle Steve. Nick recalled. I just kept thinking, I am upset right now, but I cannot imagine what she is going through to find her husband on the ground like this. Lana feared Steve's vertigo could have caused a fall down the stairs. She kept saying, I think he fell down the stairs, and that is horrible, and I hope he did not. Sergeant Day checked for any signs that Steve may have been attacked. This looked like it was probably a natural death, but you never know. Sergeant Day went upstairs to look to see what had happened. It was a little unnerving to just go through a labyrinth of a house that one had never seen before, because you never know what could be around the corner. You could tell that there did not appear to be a sign of struggle. No other signs of someone else being up there having done something to him. Nothing significant at all. In the master bedroom, the bed sheet was all rumpled up, but nothing to suggest Steve had any kind of struggle. It looked as if the cause of death would not be a mystery for the coroner. The coroner could not see any contusions or bruises. Nothing suggested Steve fell down the staircase. So she put the floor to under him? Yes, she tried to move it. It looked as though Steve made it to the bottom of the stairs and then collapsed. The coroner said, I believe he had a heart attack. And I kind of said, what leads you to that opinion? And she said, well, the coloration of his face. There was blueness that went across the top of the chest, almost in a line. And that oftentimes, according to the coroner, is an indication that he may have had a heart attack. Back in the living room, Sergeant Day told Lana what they thought had happened. When I walked to the top of the stairs, I noticed that the carpet on the staircase kind of has a direction to it. So I could see footprints. I think he may have come to the bottom of the staircase. Do not dwell on the staircase, because I know that is a hard claim to make. I do not know how he made it. I do not know what he was thinking. I think this was the day God chose. That is what I told him. While Lana digested the news, Nick and his family helped with cleaning up. They wanted to make the house still comfortable enough for her. They knew she was going to be exhausted, and she had to spend the night there. But they were shocked at what they found in the bedroom. When they went upstairs, they immediately noticed the smell. It was a smell of human filth, excrement, and urine. They looked around, and there were huge urine discoloration spots in the middle of the bed. The soiled mattress raised some questions. They thought about the amount of urine it would take to soak through this mattress. Steve had to have been going to the bathroom in this bed for days. They immediately thought, we have to get this mattress out of the room. They could barely pick it up. It was extremely heavy. They took the mattress and tossed it out of the house. When Rosie talked with Lana on the phone, she asked her, how did Steve get so ill? When I spoke with Lana much later in that evening, I asked her what happened, and she said he had not been feeling well for a few days. And I said, well, why did you not call somebody? "Why did you not let somebody know?" And she said, "Well, he was starting to feel better." She said Steve never called because he had been sleeping heavily and misplaced his cell phone a week earlier. Lana claimed that it had been missing for several days. "My brother was never, ever without his phone," Rosie said. "He was always attached to his phone. It went everywhere with him." It was at that point where I really felt like something very sinister was going on, and I did not know what it was. Steve's sister Rosie asked his widow Lana about his will. Steve and I had talked many times about what it was that he wanted to do when that time came, and he wanted to be buried in that beautiful cemetery in Fort Lauderdale. When I asked Lana, she said there is no will. Lana had already made the arrangements. Steve was due to be cremated, and she was planning his memorial. On August 4th, 2018, Lana held a service for Steve at their home. It was highly emotional. Everybody there felt such a deep connection to Steve. It was just hard to stay calm. Even though it was supposed to be a celebration of his life, one could not help but feel the deep, deep sorrow that everybody felt. If there's any space where it is okay to be sad and to cry a little bit, this is that time. And I think that it is okay today that we celebrate a life well lived and at the same time be sad. At the memorial, Rosie and the family were surprised to find Lana had already started to clear out Steve's belongings. She had already begun taking all of his clothes and all of his personal items, and she donated them all to the Veterans Affairs. I was almost knocked off my feet to see the number of hangers, empty hangers in that closet, with not a single stitch of clothes. A lot of watches missing, a lot of jewelry missing. His wedding ring was missing. Lana's claims about Steve not having will raise further suspicions. That is something that Steve and I and Steve and many other people had discussed, which was how important it was to make sure that everything was in order. There is absolutely no logic in my brother, an accountant, a person who is meticulous with his finances, not having a will. The family felt like something was not adding up. We are all on the same page here. We know something is going on. And that was when we called the medical examiner's office and said, "Hey, please do an autopsy. And at the very least, if you're not going to do that, do a toxicology." And they agreed to it. Detective Motes of the York County Sheriff's Office was also notified of the family's suspicions about Steve's death. Good morning, everybody. But when the autopsy report came in, it listed signs of heart disease and pointed to death by natural causes. The initial autopsy still showed that it was likely a heart attack, but they had to wait for the toxicologist's report to come back to finally make an actual finding. It would take a few weeks before those results arrived. So we waited on pins and needles for the truth to come out. We just knew that there was something. Something was very wrong. When the toxicology report on Steve Clayton's blood came back, it was shocking. It showed traces of several sedatives, including marijuana, temazepam, and Benadryl. But that was not all. The biggest shock in the toxicology results was tetrahydrozoline, also known as THC. It is the active ingredient in eye drops like Visine, Murine, or other over-the-counter eye drops. THC is not ever meant to be ingested. Given in small doses, it makes you feel very ill. It makes you nauseous. It makes you dizzy. It will make you pass out eventually. But in large quantities, it is deadly. It shuts your central nervous system down, and it will kill you. The detectives learned that THC could limit the blood supply to vital organs, leading to a heart attack. When the body cam went up there, the Visine one could see was on the tall dresser that was away from the bed. That was where he could not get up to get the Visine. Now it was very clear. This was not a natural death. Detective Motes needed to have a talk with Lana Clayton. 5 weeks after the sudden death of her husband, Lana Clayton was questioned by detectives. You know, if you were a witness in this case for us, the detectives wanted to know more about the medications found in Steve's blood. You know what he would say? He took Benadryl. It was a long list. But there was no mention of THC, the drug that killed Steve. It is colorless, it is odorless, and it is tasteless, which makes it the perfect thing to give to someone if you want to poison them. The level of THC in Steve's blood was so high that it was clear that it was a cause of death. It is a lethal level, no matter what way you look at it. The detectives pressed on. Somehow or another, there was a large amount of Visine in his system. So that is what we are trying to get to the bottom of. I know he puts the Visine in his coffee. He puts it in there every day. What do you know about it? What I know about it, I know it makes you have diarrhea. There were basically two things that the police were now considering. One, he was poisoned, and there was foul play. Two, he ingested it on his own, whether it was intentional or unintentional. But as police probed the relationship of Steve and Lana, they asked, "How has your life been?" Sometimes we would have fun and everything, and then sometimes I would be on eggshells. All the time I was on eggshells. Lana claimed that Steve had a dark side. He could be really nasty. What does nasty Steve look like? He is really verbally abusive, calling me names. Like what would he call you? I do not know. Stupid bitch. I do not know. Just all kind of things. I could see it escalating until you notice just, try and stay out his way. After Lana's interview, detectives ordered a search of the house. They were looking for cups or glasses that had a residue in them. They were looking for anything they could find that helped them determine what could have caused this. Anything document-wise that would show trouble in the marriage. But during that time, Lana told the officer that she wanted to speak again with Detective Moats. Detective Moats recorded what Lana had to say. I told you a little bit about Stephen, that it was worse than what I told you. He was verbally and physically abusive. Lana, for God's sake. And he would yell at me and call me names. His anger built up, I would do something that would irritate him until the point where he would explode. Okay, what are you trying to do? Huh? After he had that incident, which he said it was vertigo and I was taking care of him and everything, but I was still so angry. And my girlfriend at work told me, you want to get even with somebody, put Visine in a drink, it will cause diarrhea. It was then that Lana dropped a bombshell. When I saw that Visine on the table, it just came back to me, and I just took and squirted it. And what did you squirt it into? His water. Into his water? So you do not know the full amount? I mean, you just squeeze? I think I put the whole thing in. So the whole bottle? I think I did. I squeezed it hard. I just saw it there, and I just did it. What are your plans tonight now? Just stay here. You'll be okay. I know it is a lot on your plate. Just what if I do? What if I cause his death with the Visine? Anything else that you want to add? No. If there is more, get it off your chest. That is it. It was a damning confession. But the detectives could not arrest Lana just yet. After Lana confessed, the police left. They got their ducks in a row as far as what charges would be made. And they were ready to come back the next day to arrest Lana Clayton. But early that morning, they got a call from one of Lana's neighbors. They found notes of suicide. They were afraid that she had harmed herself. She knew the police were coming back the next day, and she knew they would have warrants for arrest. She turned the gas on and went upstairs and took some pills to kill herself. They found her unconscious in her bed. She was taken into the hospital where she was treated and ultimately released, and then immediately arrested on the charges of murder and tampering with food items. The family was informed of Lana's arrest. A detective from York County called me and said, "Hey, Nick, I just want to bring you up to speed here. Lana confessed." And I pulled over right away. It hit me like a ton of bricks, literally like a baseball bat to the face. I answered the phone, and Rosie was on the other end screaming that she killed him. On January 16th, 2020, Lana accepted a plea deal and admitted guilt on charges of voluntary manslaughter and tampering with a drug or food product. The original indictment was for murder. You were pleading to a lesser offense, voluntary manslaughter. My own knowledge of it was by watching movies and the cause of discomfort and diarrhea. Lana insisted she never intended for Steve to die and just wanted revenge for his abuse. But his friends and family did not buy that. Steve was ever abusive. She tries to assassinate Steve's character because other people who knew him and who he had met her came forward to say he was a wonderful person There was no abuse of any sort with Stephen. She was trying to do whatever she could to save herself from a very, very, very long sentence, and possibly the death penalty. But he was a gentle soul, not capable of harming someone. Based on the toxicology report, the prosecutors believe Steve suffered for 3 days before dying. Lana told us that the fatal dose was on Thursday morning. But we know as a matter of scientific fact from the toxicologist that is impossible. He would have died Thursday morning if he had ingested that Thursday morning. For him to have been sick all of that time, it indicates that she continually gave him medication throughout that time, poisoned him with Visine little by little. And Lana, a nurse, never sought to help him after the initial poisoning. Stephen would not have stayed in a urine-soaked mattress. He was a clean freak. He would not have stood for such a thing. He is too weak to get up and move. There is no phone in the house. There is no landline, so he cannot call somebody. So this puts him in the situation of being tortured with no way to get help. And so finally she knew Saturday, that is it. And she squeezed a whole bottle of Visine into his water, had him drink it, and then goes out to mow the grass. So she did not have to watch the horror of his death. Instead of a nurse that helps, she is the nurse from hell. 53-year-old Lana Clayton was sentenced to 25 years in prison. She never admitted that she intended to kill Steve, but the facts showed otherwise. I feel like there is no penalty that would have been great enough for Lana. This is 3 days of methodically poisoning my best friend and then killing him. The thought process that had to go into her putting on this charade. And she carried that right on through till the end. And I think that is the definition of a monster. But Lana almost got away with it. There almost was not an autopsy. If there had not been an autopsy, the ruling of the coroner would have been, this was likely a heart episode, and it was natural causes. The truth is she did this to herself, you know. Had she been just the same quiet, gentle Lana, grieving the loss of Steve, no one would have had any suspicion whatsoever. Although Lana insisted Steve's death was unintentional, his family and the prosecution believed it was a deliberate act motivated by financial gain. One obvious and glaring motive was Steve's wealth. Without a will in the state of South Carolina, everything goes to the spouse. So Lana would know, if Steve is gone, I get everything. If somebody wanted to do something malicious like this, all they had to do was get rid of the will, and everything belonged to them. The family tried to move on without Steve in their lives. Hello. I mean, I miss a lot about Steve, but I miss his voice. I miss hearing his voice. This is my way of, getting away from the emotional stuff. I think what I miss about Steve is his over-the-top personality. This big, boisterous, gregarious character that enters a room and just takes over everything. Steve was an amazing person. It has been difficult not having him around. The thing I miss the most about Steve is his laughter and his ability to light up a room. Stephen was stolen from everyone who loved him. Steve was stolen from everyone who loved him. And yet, in the hearts of those he mentored, the lives he touched, and the family he built, his laughter continues to echo, a testament to a man who lived fully, loved deeply, and left the world a little brighter, even when the shadows tried to dim his light. To his sisters, he seemed to have a radiant glow about him that he had been missing for a little while. He was noticeably excited about the future. Her name was Lana Walsh, 12 years his junior. She was a dedicated medical nurse who had grown up in the quiet towns of Oklahoma. When Rosie first met her, Lana struck her as being very sweet. She was a very quiet woman, but exceptionally polite and nice. And this profound quietness kind of stood out immediately, primarily because Steve himself was not very quiet at all. Steve's personality was gigantic and room-filling, while Lana was more like a gentle wallflower, observing from the edges. Despite their obvious personality differences, Steve was absolutely sure she was the one he had been waiting for. They were always very affectionate with each other, constantly walking arm in arm. Steve was always happily hugging her, playfully squeezing her, and warmly kissing her cheek. Rosie felt incredibly happy for her big brother. She decided that anyone her brother loved so deeply, she was naturally going to welcome and embrace into the family fold. It was not long at all before Steve eagerly asked Lana to move in with him. After they got to know each other quite a bit more through countless conversations and shared dinners, Steve managed to persuade her to come live with him in Charlotte. As his family well knew, Steve could be a very convincing negotiator when he set his mind to something. To make their new house feel like a true home, they decided to add some furry new additions to the family. The very first dog that Steve and Lana brought home was named Guinness, a sleek and elegant Italian greyhound. They both completely fell in love with the affectionate breed, and so they quickly decided that they wanted to adopt another one. The second little dog was a sweet girl, and her name was Sadie. With Lana by his side, Steve finally felt as though he found his long-missing puzzle piece. He always had such wonderful, glowing things to say about her. He affectionately referred to her as his Lana Sue. He simply could not hide the profound feelings he held in his heart for her. He was very much in love. Rosie thought that Steve had finally found himself beautifully grounded with Lana. She felt like her brother had discovered a true, lasting sense of peace with this quiet nurse. Steve Clayton had journeyed to North Carolina looking for a pleasant change from his old, fast-paced life, and he ended up finding a whole new, beautiful future. When Steve Clayton had danced with his beloved sister at her wedding, he had quietly dreamed of finding his own special someone to share his golden years with. And now, 6 years after that dance, he was eagerly preparing to marry the woman he considered the love of his life. It was a perfectly lovely day in the cool month of November in the year 2013. Many members of the Clayton family had excitedly traveled all the way up to North Carolina just to be present and to enjoy that magical day with him. And true to his nature, Steve made sure the entire celebration was wonderfully special for everyone who attended. Lana and Steve's wedding ceremony took place right at their beautiful house in Charlotte. It was such a splendid, heartwarming event. Guests could just vividly see the pure love radiating from them. Both the bride and the groom were absolutely beaming with joy. Soon after tying the knot, the happy couple decided to relocate to what they believed would be their forever home. They moved just over the state border into South Carolina, settling peacefully on the picturesque banks of Lake Wylie. The new residence was like something plucked straight out of a glossy travel postcard. This gorgeous, ocean blue-colored home sat majestically on a stunning piece of prime lakefront property. It was beyond lovely, surrounded by lush trees and calm waters. The couple enthusiastically set about refurbishing their grand new home. They spent weeks meticulously decorating the spacious rooms with Steve's impressive, lifelong collection of fine artworks and historical antiques. Steve was a kind of sentimental person for whom objects held deep personal meaning. He was very proud of his curated possessions because they were all totally unique in some special way. The strategic move to the lake also allowed the couple to fully indulge in their shared love of nature. If there was ever something fun and outdoors to do, Steve was guaranteed to be the very first one out the door. He was always incredibly gung-ho about exploring the world. Their pleasant relocation to South Carolina also meant the pair were geographically much closer to Steve's wide, extended family. A young man named Nick French, who had married Steve's niece back in the year 2010, was thrilled by the move, having officially become Steve's nephew. Nick and his wife hung out with Steve and Lana a great deal once they moved up to the lake. The family would frequently go out to joyful dinners with them. They would attend lively outdoor concerts together, and they would consistently gather for special family events during every single holiday season. Steve and Lana were also conveniently located just a short 30-minute drive away from Lana's own son and her young grandchildren. The energetic couple never once said no to a bit of babysitting duty. Steve naturally had a wonderful, magical way with children. This was largely because Steve had always remained a playful child at heart. He was exactly the kind of grown man who would happily get right down on the living room floor and play with the kids for hours. He would sing songs like Pop Goes the Weasel to make them giggle. With the cheerful sounds of children constantly echoing around, There was truly never a dull moment inside the Clayton household. During one particularly funny visit, Lana filmed a video of Steve hilariously attempting to describe how to do the limbo dance, all while her twin granddaughters watched him in total amusement. The little girls declared they would make Papa do it. Steve animatedly explained the rules, saying that there's a stick, and a person has to lean back like that, and then walk entirely under the stick. He demonstrated how a person has to get real low to the ground to successfully go under the stick, explaining to the girls that it is a fun game and a silly dance. He joked that the young girls had to tell him how to properly act it out. Lana was highly tickled by the whole performance, though the young twins ultimately seemed a bit more interested in eating their sweet ice cream than learning the limbo. Steve genuinely enjoyed playing all kinds of games with his family, whether it was a highly competitive round of Scrabble at the kitchen table or even a silly, messy childless game in the living room. He was always an enthusiastic participant. During a game involving whipped cream, Steve playfully challenged his family, asking if they wanted him to get in on the action, knowing full well that they did. He instructed the kids to just spin the colorful spinner and then turn the plastic handles many times. He counted aloud 1, 2, and then bravely put his head into the contraption, resting his chin on the plastic ledge. He called out letters A, E, D, F, bringing laughter to the room. The children shouted for him to spin it forward, debating whether to turn both handles or just one. Steve was essentially a huge, lovable teddy bear. The children absolutely loved to play with him, and he always had joyful kids hanging onto his arms and legs. He would ask them what number they rolled, cheering when they yelled out 3, and Lana was always game for some lighthearted fun as well. When the game mechanism finally triggered, sending whipped cream flying, Steve would shout in mock terror, "Oh no, it is coming. It is coming up. It does it every time. Here it comes." And then the room would erupt in cheers and uncontrollable laughter. For 5 beautiful years into their marriage, Steve and Lana appeared to the outside world to be thriving wonderfully. Their home was filled with light, laughter, and the warmth of family. But the bright summer days took an unexpected turn. In the warm month of June, in the year 2018, the usually energetic Steve suddenly fell ill. It was a stark contrast to his normal, vibrant self. He told his family that he felt incredibly dizzy, complaining of a severe bout of vertigo. He mentioned that his ear hurt terribly and that he felt deeply nauseous. It got so bad that he actually started getting physically sick right out in his beloved yard. Rosie felt real bad for her brother when she heard the news. She knew that he had occasionally experienced minor issues with vertigo prior to this incident, but nothing quite this severe. Steve later told her he had been very ill and did not know exactly what was wrong with his body. He just remembered that he had been happily working out in his garden, enjoying the sunshine, when he suddenly started to feel dizzy, a little nauseous, and developed a pounding headache. He initially thought that maybe he had just stayed out too long and gotten sunstroke. When Lana asked if he was okay, he could only manage a weak nod. As a trained nurse, Lana calmly decided that the absolute best thing for Steve was immediate, uninterrupted bed rest. Steve recounted to his sister that he remembered slowly walking upstairs and laying down on his comfortable bed. He then said that the very next time he opened his eyes, an astonishing 36 hours had passed by. Greatly worried by this highly unusual event, Rosie immediately called Lana to see if she could medically explain Steve's mystery illness. Rosie asked her sister-in-law what she thought was going on, primarily because it is very odd for any healthy person of any age to completely lose 36 hours of time to sleep. Lana smoothly assured Rosie that Steve was going to be perfectly fine, stating that she was closely watching him and actively making sure he was okay. Even though Steve had never been completely leveled by an illness quite like this before, Lana maintained the comforting theory that Steve was simply suffering from extreme physical exhaustion. Rosie felt immensely reassured knowing that Lana was right there to take care of her brother in any way that she could, especially valuing her professional knowledge as a medical nurse. It honestly seemed to the family that Steve's larger-than-life energy and constant activity were finally starting to catch up with his aging body. Thankfully, just 2 short weeks later, it appeared that Lana's prescribed treatment of deep rest had worked wonders. Steve was entirely back to his old, boisterous self. To celebrate his recovery and the summer holiday, he threw a massive, joyous party for the 4th of July. Family and friends recalled that specific party was just as incredibly great as every other legendary party they had ever attended at the Clayton estate. Steve was back to being his normal, highly affectionate, and loud self. Absolutely everybody in attendance had a truly great time. Videos from that sunny afternoon showed Steve happily dancing with Lana as they celebrated the holiday in grand style. He had grabbed Lana by the waist right away when the music started, and the rest of the family just kind of followed suit, with everyone joining in on the dancing and laughter. Nick remembered fondly watching his uncle hug Lana tight and kiss her affectionately to the entire crowd gathered by the lake. They looked like 2 people who were completely and hopelessly in love. Things were undeniably good at the beautiful Clayton home. Not a single person in their wide circle of loved ones doubted for a second that Lana and Steve's lives together were going to be anything but immensely happy and wonderfully long. They seemed to have built a perfect paradise. However, the tranquility of their lakeside paradise was profoundly shattered later that same month. On the 21st of July, 2018, an urgent emergency call came into the York County Dispatch Center. Police units and medical personnel were quickly dispatched to the serene neighborhood. When the officers arrived on the scene, the bright, sunny day felt immediately heavy. Body camera footage recorded by the responding officer, Sergeant Day, captured the somber reality of what they found upon entering the grand residence. As the officers walked through the large front door, they tragically discovered Steve lying still right at the bottom of the homeless grand, sweeping staircase. Unfortunately, by the time the authorities arrived at that point, the vibrant man was already gone. He had passed away. On the audio of the recording, the officers could be heard whispering and purposefully talking in very low, respectful voices. That was out of deep consideration, because Lana Clayton was sitting just around the corner, appearing thoroughly distraught and crying softly. The professionals did not want to say anything loudly that might be further disturbing or upsetting to the grieving widow. Preliminary reports noted that it was just his wife and family left behind to mourn. Sergeant Day, carrying out his solemn duty, needed to speak gently with Steve's U.S. wife, Lana, to try and piece together exactly what had happened that morning. He approached her softly, introducing himself as Sergeant Day, and kindly informed her that he was going to be there for just a little while, at least until the county coroner arrived to properly handle the transportation and official procedures. When he offered her a seat, Lana politely declined, stating, "Oh, no, sir, I am just fine. It feels good to me to stand if I am not making you uncomfortable." Lana proceeded to tell Sergeant Day that Steve had been suffering from terrible dizziness for the past 2 days. She explained that Stephen had been very ill with a returning bout of severe vertigo. She recounted that she had found him on Thursday morning after he had stood up, suddenly gotten very dizzy, and collapsed to the floor. She detailed how she had to physically help him walk up the stairs to their bedroom, and that since that specific time, he had not been back downstairs. The officer gently asked Miss Clayton if she had been outside working in the yard that morning. Lana nodded, explaining that she was just mowing the lawn real quick. And when she finally came back inside the house, she found that he had fallen down. She expressed deep sorrow, saying she was so sorry, and that she had desperately tried to place a soft blanket underneath him, but found that she could not manage it on her own. It appeared that despite her extensive professional medical training, Lana was entirely unable to render life-saving aid to Steve in that critical moment. The officers assumed that was a terrible moment when she truly panicked, realizing with a sinking heart that she could not do anything further to help her husband. According to her account, she immediately ran outside the house when she heard a passing motorcycle, frantically waving the driver down to beg them to call for emergency services. The tragic news spread quickly through the family. Nephew Nick French was actually on duty working as a police officer in another jurisdiction when he received the devastating call. His mother had called him, her voice trembling, and simply said that his Uncle Steve had died. Nick described his immediate reaction as a state of complete disbelief. He knew intellectually that it was for Betrayal, but the heavy truth did not really sink into his heart right away. He immediately finished his shift duties and drove down to the South Carolina house as quick as he possibly could. He later recalled that the whole time he was driving, the only thoughts running on a loop through his head were the agonizing questions of how and why this could happen to such a vibrant, healthy man. Hundreds of miles away, Rosia's phone rang. When she looked down and saw that it was her nephew calling, she answered, only to hear the words that would change her life. Nick told her, Uncle Steve died, Uncle Steve died. Rosie immediately rejected the words, crying out that it was not possible. It simply was not possible. Her mind raced, unable to comprehend how her larger-than-life brother, her hero and protector, could suddenly be gone. She wept, screaming to the empty room, no, I cannot believe it. With Rosie stuck 700 miles away, Nick and his local family members rushed to rally around the grieving Lana. Nick felt truly awful for her, because he had always known how much she appeared to love his Uncle Steve. As he walked into the house, he just kept thinking to himself that while he was incredibly upset right now, he could not even begin to imagine the unique pain she must be going through. To unexpectedly find her husband lying on the ground like that must have been a traumatic nightmare. Lana openly shared her fears with the family, repeatedly expressing her terrifying thought that Steve's severe vertigo could have tragically caused him to lose his balance and fall all the way down the long flight of stairs. She kept saying through her tears that she thought he fell down the stairs, and that the thought was horrible, and she had just kept hoping he was not badly hurt. Meanwhile, Sergeant Day meticulously checked the surrounding area for any subtle signs that Steve might have been the victim of an attack. To the trained eye, the scene generally looked like it was probably a tragic but natural passing. But an investigator knows you can never be absolutely certain without checking. So, Sergeant Day proceeded to go upstairs to carefully look around and see if he could determine what had preceded the fall. Navigating a large, unfamiliar house under such grim circumstances is always a little unnerving, acting like a labyrinth where one never knows what could be waiting around the next corner. After a thorough visual sweep, the sergeant noted that there did not appear to be any obvious sign of a physical struggle. There were no overturned lamps, no broken glass, and absolutely no other signs indicating that someone else had been up there and had done something violent to him. There was nothing significant out of place at all. Inside the sprawling master bedroom, the large bedsheet was all rumpled up, indicating someone had been tossing and turning, but there was nothing in the room to officially suggest Steve had engaged in any kind of desperate struggle for his life. It looked, at first glance, as if the true cause of his tragic death would not be a complicated mystery for the medical professionals. When the county coroner finally arrived, she conducted a preliminary examination of the body. She noted aloud that she could not see any external contusions or dark bruises on his skin. Physically, there was nothing on his body that definitively suggested Steve had violently